What is going on, YouTube? It is the All Things Mets podcast, guys. This is going to be episode 1. Definitely leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy Mets content and baseball content in general. We're going to get into a whole bunch of topics, but definitely, guys, let's just get going. What is going on, guys? This is All Things Mets, your latest Mets media. This is the All Things Mets podcast, guys, episode 1, and we're going to get into a whole bunch of topics, so let's get right into it, guys. The Mets are now 4 games under 500. Yes, I'm saying that right now. They're 33 and 37 right now. They got 33 wins, 37 losses. But the Mets themselves, ever since this team meeting, they have been playing with energy. They have been playing with fire. They have been playing team baseball. They're looking like a real baseball team that has energy and that really wants to have fun when they play baseball. That's how the Mets have been looking, ever since this team meeting 2 weeks ago. And, ever since 2 weeks ago, the Mets, in London, ESPN, Francisco Lindor saying, I think Francisco Lindor is basically the captain of this team, to be honest, because he seems to be the spokesman for this team. We know he got the extension. We know he's going to be with the Mets for some time. So he's the spokesman. This guy's the captain. Francisco Lindor is basically the captain of the New York Mets. So going into what Francisco Lindor said on the ESPN, London, he said, we had to take accountability. We had to talk to each other in this team meeting. We had to, really be honest with ourselves. Ever since that, you can call it the team meeting. You can call it the Grimace era, whatever you want to call it. Now they're 5-0 in the Grimace era. Definitely, whatever you want to call it, the Mets have been successful, guys. They're only 4 games under 500, which is huge. You can look at the positives of Francisco Alvarez, Edwin Diaz coming back, but man, you gotta hand it to Francisco Lindor for bringing this energy, for bringing himself back to a 230 batting average. This guy had a 190 batting average, 200, and now he has a 230 batting average. He has 12 home runs. He has 34 RBIs. Francisco Lindor is having a good season, and not a great season. I'm not gonna say he's having a great season, but he's looking like the Francisco Lindor that the Mets need him to be. And ever since he's moved into this leadoff spot, Francisco Lindor has been huge for this team. Huge defensively, offensively, a spark for this team. And ever since that, Francisco Lindor has been on fire. Francisco Lindor has been on fire. This is the team spokesman, or the team's captain, whatever you want to call him. But man, he is, basically bringing a lot of energy to this team. And the Mets are just having fun. At the end of the day, the Mets are just having fun playing team baseball. And yeah, when you look at the Mets 2 weeks ago, they weren't in a good place. But now 4 games under 500. Their last 10 games, 8-2. So listen, they had that big win, that second big win, that big double play with Luis Torrens that he got in Philly, the 3-6-3, that double play. That was a huge double play. Torrens got the ground ball, and he stepped on home and he threw the first. And they won the game. After that, it was good because the Miami Marlins were coming in. The Miami Marlins is one of the worst teams in baseball. Plain and simple, one of the worst teams in baseball. So the Mets had to win that series. And when they lost game 1, you thought, oh man, here we go again. But no, they came back with energy that second game, that third game, and they won those games. And Edwin Diaz coming back was completely huge. Francisco Alvarez coming back is huge. If you don't know, guys, the Francisco Alvarez, when the Mets didn't have Francisco Alvarez, they were horrible. When they do have Francisco Alvarez, they're pretty good. So Francisco Alvarez, when he was injured, obviously the Mets were struggling. But when he wasn't injured, the Mets were winning games. And now the Mets are winning games. So you can talk about Francisco Alvarez, the effect on the team, the effect on the pitching staff that he has is really amazing. He might not have the best arm when it comes to throwing out, to people, throwing out people for stolen bases. But The way he calls a game, the way he has the confidence to tell a pitcher, get the ball up, get the ball up. That type of stuff you can't teach. You saw a good start with Quintana. You saw a good start with Sean Manaea. So Francisco Alvarez, the Francisco Alvarez effect is huge for this team. Huge. But man, let's get into Edwin Diaz, guys. Edwin Diaz, ever since he has come back, he has been looking like himself. Looking like the Edwin Diaz from 2022. The guy that has a fastball, a velocity of more than 98 miles per hour. A guy that has the nasty slider. Edwin Diaz is a big part of this team. This team is going to go as far as Edwin Diaz wants this team, as far as he's going to take them. Because Edwin Diaz is the closer. Plain and simple, he is the closer. He is the guy to close games. So he needs to be great. He needs to be great. He needs to close down these games, these tight games. He needs to be the guy to save games. And Edwin Diaz, ever since he's come back, he got his first save in 30 days or something like that. And Edwin Diaz is huge for this team. Plain and simple, he is huge for this team. Now, let's talk about Brandon Nimmo, guys. Brandon Nimmo seems to be coming around, guys. He got, in that last game, against the Padres, he got 3 hits, guys. Brandon Nimmo has been hitting the ball, scolding the ball a lot better. And that is good to see, guys. So the Mets swept the Padres, and it was great to see. Amazing that the Mets even got the sweep on the Padres. That was not going to be easy. But the Mets did their job. And you know what I love about this? Is the Mets offense showed up at home. That is a plain and simple fact. We know the home field advantage has not felt like home field advantage for the New York Mets. It just hasn't. So Brandon Nimmo, they put him out of that 3rd spot. It feel like ever since they took him out that 3rd spot, Brandon Nimmo has been hitting the ball. Brandon Nimmo maybe has less pressure. He feels better in the 2-hole. He feels better somewhere else. And good to see. But Francisco Lindor is going to be your leadoff hitter for the end of the season. He's going to be for the whole season. But Brandon Nimmo, guys, he needs to get going. So Brandon Nimmo right now is batting .232. He has 7 home runs and 35 RBIs. Now, ever since Brandon Nimmo has been taken out of that 3 spot, Brandon Nimmo has been hitting the ball very well and in good situations, which was good to see. Yesterday, in that bases loaded situation, the Mets had the lead, and Brandon Nimmo, hit the ball right up the middle, scolded that ball, didn't even wait, and he just hit that ball up the middle and hard. And, that was good to see from Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo's a very important part of this team. That's another guy that has an extension. So Brandon Nimmo is going to be a Met for a long time as well. The Mets need to get Brandon Nimmo going, and he is a very, very important part of this team. Now, maybe it was a mental thing. Maybe he was putting too much pressure on himself in that 3rd spot. So now that the Mets took him off that spot, in the 2-hole or wherever he is, Nimmo has been now hitting the ball very, very well for these last 3 games. And good to see. It is a small sample size, but Brandon Nimmo is a guy that was Mr. Consistency. This guy had a good season, really good season last year, but 7 home runs, 35 RBIs, a .232 batting average. That is not Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo's a guy that can bat a .270 batting average, a .280 batting average, a guy that doesn't strike out a lot. And, we've seen Brandon Nimmo strike out a lot this season compared to last season. So Brandon Nimmo needs to show up for this team. He is a big part of this team, and it looks like he's showing up. It looks like for these last 3 games, he has shown up. He's gotten some big, big hits, definitely in that first game. And in the second game, Nimmo, it's good to see. It's really good to see because the Mets need Brandon Nimmo to be Brandon Nimmo. Plain and simple. They need him to be the Mr. Consistency, the guy that doesn't strike out a lot, the guy that, works at bats, that type of guy. We don't need Brandon Nimmo to hit 25 home runs. I don't think that he has to be that guy. It would be cool, if he could hit 25 home runs, but I don't want him to sacrifice his average. You don't want that. He's not a power hitter, but he has power. But that doesn't mean he needs to hit 220 and hit 20 home runs. No, that means that, he could hit maybe 15 home runs and have a batting average of 280. I would definitely take that. It is a long season, but a 280 batting average compared to a 240 batting average with 15 home runs, So me personally, I know a lot of people don't think that batting average is a big thing. I personally do like the batting average, and I still, value it. So when it comes to the Mets, Brandon Nimmo is a huge piece for this team, guys. So, yeah, guys, now we have talked about Francisco Alvarez. We talked about Edwin Diaz. We talked about Brandon Nimmo. So, Starling Marte, guys, has been a really confusing player, to watch for the New York Mets for some time now. Definitely this season, I felt like he was going to have a bounce back season. I felt like he was going to show up, and definitely he has. He has so far. Whether you want to say he's horrible defensively, he's definitely has not been good. He hasn't been great, and that is something that definitely needs to be monitored and watched, because Starling Marte not being a good defender is maybe going to cost the Mets at some time. So when it comes to Starling Marte at the plate, though, this guy's batting 281, 7 home runs, 28 RBIs. When you look at what Starling Marte is doing at the plate, he's back. Starling Marte is back. He is doing what he was doing in 2022, before he got hurt. And that is good to see for the Mets, because the Mets need Starling Marte to be really good. If the Mets want to make playoffs, want to be successful, Starling Marte has to be a big part of it. I like Starling Marte. I always have. When we signed Starling Marte, I was very, very excited to watch him, and I thought he was going to be the center fielder for this team. Now, it didn't go that way entirely, but definitely Starling Marte, is what makes him good at right field is his arm. Defensively though, he just has not been great. He has one of the worst defensive save, averages runs in the league. He hasn't been good. And he's the whole thing is, I always felt that Starling Marte plays, lackadaisical, like lazy. It looks that way because he doesn't, run after balls like crazy. He just lets balls, fly right on, Yeah, he just lets the ball, just fly, and then he just, waits for the hop. That's what he does. And Starling Marte, when it comes to defensively, he just has not been great. And you look at the London game, you look at the past game with the Padres, he's not catching balls that have a 93% catch probability. That is unacceptable. Whether you want to talk about Starling Marte saying that the Mets put him in, bad position defensively or whatever, and now they're changing it, but it doesn't look like that's doing anything. Starling Marte is still playing that lackadaisical defense, doesn't run out after a ball, that's right in front of him. It just makes no sense. And yes, he's old, but, I want Starling Marte to be really good for this team. Defensively, it looks like he is not going to be a great defender for this team. Tyrone Taylor is a better defender for this team, but Starling Marte's bat is needed for this team. So the Mets need Starling Marte to be great, but he is becoming a problem, lately defensively. And yes, he has a great arm. I like his arm a lot. And I'm happy that he's playing right field because of his arm. But defensively, if he's letting balls just fly, right, in front of him, that is not good for the team. So I don't know whether the Mets have to have a conversation with him or the Mets have to, because I don't know with Marte, man. I really don't. I think, he is older. He is in a different part of his career, but just in general, you want Starling Marte to be doing great in all the cases, defensively, offensively, but it's not looking like you're going to get that great defender, Starling Marte. And yes, he's old, but he needs to play better. He needs to play with more, more energy in the outfield, and I just don't feel that he's really playing with a lot of energy in the outfield. I really don't. But a batting average of 281, 7 home runs, 25, RBIs is really good to see after having a horrible season in 2023. And not looking like himself at all. So it seems like the injuries and what he went through to 2023 has now been passed, it's now done. It's now done. Now 2024, he's been performing and he's looking like the starter Marte that offensively they need him to be. But defensively, there's a lot of help that we need. So, yeah, man. Guys, let's get into Luis Torrens, guys. What are we feeling about Luis Torrens? Me personally, I am loving the Luis Torrens, Francisco Alvarez tandem. I love that the Mets actually, said, Nito, get the hell out of here. We don't want you. We want Luis Torrens because he's earned the job. He's performed consistently. He's throwing out, but he has one of the quickest pop times, in the league right now. And man, his arm is on fire. His arm, Luis Torrens, and his throws are on point, guys. He's gotten, guys like Nick Gordon out, like Jazz Chisholm. Those guys are not easy to get. And the running game is something that the Mets struggled with completely, obviously, after the Francisco Alvarez, injury. But Luis Torrens, guys, has shut down a lot of that running game. So when it comes to offensively and defensively, Luis Torrens has showed up. It's looking like the Mets have got, lightning in a bottle when it comes to Luis Torrens. And he's been playing great for this team. And the Mets... I'm loving that Francisco Alvarez is back now, but the fact that Luis Torrens, has that quick pop time and is throwing out runners, he's definitely going to get some playing time, guys. And maybe it might not be every day. Of course, it won't be every day. Francisco Alvarez is going to play every day. But Luis Torrens, guys, this guy is huge for this team. And that home run that he had in yesterday's games against the Padres was a huge home run. And after the Mets blew a 5-run lead, and it was only down to one. It was 1-run lead, after the Jake Diekman and all the issues with the Padres. But Luis Torrens came up, hit that home run, and got the lead back up to 8-6. And that just shows that Luis Torrens, guys, is a good hitter. First of all, a guy that doesn't have a lot of power, but it seems like lately, man, his swing has been on point. His throws have been on point. There hasn't been a reason why the Mets don't put him in the lineup. So, Francisco Alvarez is going to get most of the playing time, of course, but the tandem of Francisco Alvarez and Luis Torrens is exciting to watch. And like I said, the Mets have basically struck lightning in a bottle when it comes to Luis Torrens. So that is great to see for the Mets. JD Martinez, guys, what a homestand he has had. JD Martinez has had an amazing homestand, guys. Man, what a homestand. JD Martinez hit like 3-4 home runs, guys. I think he hit 3 home runs, in that homestand. He hit doubles. He was hitting the ball the other way. He showed why he is the JD Martinez. He showed why he is one of the best hitters in all of baseball, when he's healthy. And JD Martinez has been doing this since 2018, guys. He's been great. And the Mets got him for a reason. There's a reason why I wanted the Mets to go after JD Martinez, one of the best hitters in baseball when he's healthy. And that is the reason right there. That is the reason right there, that JD Martinez can hit the ball the opposite way, knows how to hit the ball in big situations, bases loaded, whatever you want to call it. Runners in scoring position, this guy shows up. He's a good hitter. He knows what to do. And I love the fact that he's using the opposite field in Citi Field. Citi Field is a big ballpark, but JD Martinez has a lot of power and could definitely hit the ball out. You saw 3 home runs in the homestand for JD Martinez. That is huge. He's gotten some big hits, guys, for the Mets. So I love what I've seen from JD Martinez. I truly love what I've seen from JD Martinez. This guy, JD Martinez, in that 3 spot, I love him in that 3 spot. I think JD Martinez is one of the best hitters in baseball, when he's healthy. And he's definitely been doing this since 2018. So he's just really good, man. And the Mets got him for a reason. And he's showing all the Mets fans, he's showing all the baseball fans why the Mets got him. And why other teams, shouldn't have passed on him. So great to see that JD Martinez is now, looking like himself. Looking like that big bat that the Mets needed. That is something huge that the Mets needed. Now, guys, let's get into the Texas Rangers, guys. They are now 33-38. 5 games under 500, guys. Yes, the Mets are 4 games under 500, but they are going to face the Texas Rangers in Arlington, and this is a big series for the Mets to win. You got David Peterson in the first game. I definitely feel that this is good to see. It's good to see the Mets face these teams, and you got to take advantage. You got to take advantage of these bad teams. So hopefully the Mets win the series. The Mets had a great homestand, looked great offensively, and hopefully they can bring that over to the road and bring that over to Arlington with the Texas Rangers. And you look at the Texas Rangers, you look at the World Series 2023 Texas Rangers, and the fact that they have not been good this season. They have not. Offensively, they haven't been good. Pitchers, hasn't been that good. Obviously, Jacob deGrom is still on the shelf. Max Scherzer's on the shelf. Their big prospects just hasn't really been showing up. Evan Carter, looking like the rookie of the year in the postseason last year, hasn't really done much. And when you look at those situations, baseball is hard. Baseball will humble you. And definitely the Texas Rangers right now, you didn't think that nobody, I never thought that the Texas Rangers was going to win the World Series last year, but they had a good team. They was playing team baseball. Everything was just aligning at the right time for the Texas Rangers, and they won it. But the Mets have to take advantage of these bad teams. They won that last games against the Phillies. They beat the Miami Marlins, took 2 out of 3. They swept the Padres. Now you got to win this series against the Texas Rangers. Maybe you don't need to keep the winning streak going, but just win series. Win series, because if you keep on winning series, you're going to get over 500 eventually. And then after that, it's going to be open season for the Mets, and hopefully they can just keep it going, because I personally feel this is a good team. Offensively, this is a good team. With Francisco Alvarez being back, with JD Martinez now being JD Martinez, the Mets can be a really good team. With Brandon Nimmo, sparking soon, that is something that the Mets really, really need, guys. So when it comes to these situations, the Mets themselves, you know what I'm saying? They got to win this series, and they just got to keep on winning series. And yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the podcast episode, let me know what you guys think, guys. Definitely, I loved, talking about this whole podcast. I love talking about the topics, everything that we talked about. Let me know what you guys, want me to talk about next. And yeah, man, I think personally, I love where the Mets are going right now. Definitely next Monday, we're going to get into another podcast. It's going to be episode 2. And yeah, man, I think the Mets are in a good place right now, but they just got to keep it going. So whether you want to call it the Grimace era, whatever you want to call it, let's keep it going, guys. The Mets just got to get over 500, keep on winning series. And yeah, that is all I want to see from the Mets, guys. So yeah, man, I'm out of here. Have a good one. This is All Things Mets. And yeah, man, I love GM for life.